Welcome friends to our journey across Japan. 19 days, 8 different prefectures and 1 surprise proposal. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's go back to day 1, which to be perfectly honest was a bit of a write-off. By the time we landed, we'd been traveling for 32 grueling hours, which meant when we landed all we had time to do was a half-dazed stumble through Shinjuku before going for a gentle stroll in a nearby private park. And that was about all we could manage. Day 2 is where things really started kicking off for us. Thankfully, we've been getting up an hour earlier each day in the week leading up, which meant we were able to avoid pretty much all the regular jet lag. So after exploring the nearby temple, we began our journey towards Shibuya, the world's busiest crossing. Then we immersed ourselves in all the local shops. We even stopped into a gacha store, which is quite popular over there, and for some reason I just didn't seem to be able to figure it out. I hadn't put the right amount of money in, and even when I had the right money, it was the wrong size. But I didn't let even that deter me, for on top of this building was a beautiful observation room that looked down on Shibuya Crossing, and you could get a beer and even write a cute little sticky note saying what you're there for. And after grabbing a little coffee to sharpen us up, we went to a location I was really looking forward to, the Lost Bar, which was created by Chris Broad, a fellow YouTuber. Not only is it a cool way to support someone whose content you've regularly watched, but it's also in a great spot, has a good vibe, and has lots of quirky cocktails to try. Later that day, we had a Team Labs booking, so we took a train down south to the little islands and had a look around all the attractions there. After looking at the beautiful Gundam statue, I even summoned up all my big boy energy and gave the gacha machine there another go, which I managed to do successfully this time. But there were bigger fish to fry, because you see, this whole day I'd been hatching a secret plan to propose to my girlfriend of 8 beautiful years. So I took her for a stroll down to a bridge overlooking the Tokyo skyline, and under the guise of recording footage for this specific video, I set up a tripod and managed to capture the whole moment. She said yes, or I wouldn't be making this video, I'd be floating in the river. Naturally, I didn't record the following few hours. I wanted us to have a moment together just to celebrate privately, but we did have a booking at Team Labs, as I said, and I have to say, it's already a beautiful spectacle, but with the energy we had going into it of having just got engaged to one another, the sights were genuinely a level of beautiful that I just can't even explain. It was such a wholesome way to end what is possibly one of the best days of both of our lives. It was magical. Day 3 was another super fun one because my sister and her husband were actually out celebrating their honeymoon in Tokyo, and we managed to meet up, have a few drinks and booked in a food tour, which are a great way to get to know the local area.
It's been a small kingdom for about 450 years.
A guide that was worth paying for bringing us to the famous Yakuza alley alone. But aside from that, I didn't get much footage during this. I was just trying to catch up with my family and I didn't want to seem rude to the tour guide. But once it was done, it was our time to shine. So I took the fam to a local arcade and introduced Matt to the joys of Japanese culture. This was quickly followed by multiple hours of karaoke that was so good and so pitch perfect I daren't even play a clip lest Alicia Keys copyrights this video. The following day was a bit of a slower start. We'd had one too many beer rooms, so we started with a late evening in Akihabara and had banging yakitori at this really cool restaurant we found. Then it was time to hit the arcades. And after achieving the highest score on every single machine in Akihabara, I decided to turn my attention to the claw machines. Specifically, this pink Yoshi for my new fiancée. And after many tries and literally being guided on how to do it via Google Translate by one of the workers, I managed to get the bitch. Aww. Needless to say, I was a pretty big deal there. On day 5, we decided to check out the Imperial Palace grounds, and they were stunning. But it was another scorcher of a day, and we needed a little snackety snack to give us the energy before walking around these grounds. So we walked just down from the palace a little bit and found this really cool spot. And my word, it is as delicious as it looks. And now that we were refueled, we were ready to take on the palace grounds. But we weren't done there. It was our final day in Tokyo, so we had to hit another major landmark before we left, Sensoji Temple. And this place is busy. I don't know what they're doing. It's some kind of smoke ceremony. And after exploring the grounds, I decided it was time to test my luck. With one of these traditional donation things, you put in 100 yen, you pull out a stick, and that stick will guide you to a sheet of paper which will either give you good fortune or bad fortune. That's fortune, baby. And of course, by that point, it had been a whole 2.5 minutes since we last ate, something we had to rectify immediately with these blue cheese Wagyu cutlets at a market just down the way. That's amazing. There was also a viral creme brulee sweet potato you could buy in the area, so after mooching around a little bit, we went there and had it as a final meal of the day. Creme brulee sweet potato. What's inside of it? It's strange. It's sweet potato and like custard, but it's delicious. Oh, update vid on the potato. It was nice, but the issue is the creme brulee is only like a shallow layer on the top, which is lovely. But by the time that's done, you're just eating a mostly cold sweet potato. So definitely worth a try because it's unique, but bear that in mind. We ended up having to take ours home. Day 6 was a travel day and our first time using the Shinkansen. So after grabbing a sandwich and a coffee, the first port of call was grabbing a bento box. And let me tell you, the bento box selection in Japan is insane. The journey was super easy going and only took a few hours, and after getting checked into our hotel and freshening up, we went out and explored the local area, ending up at this really cute restaurant called Nine Tails. It was like a cocktail food bar. It was really bougie, really nicely decorated, the staff were lovely, but it was a bit empty. Granted, it was a Monday night, so maybe that's why. Some ginger whiskey sours. And like a fruity martini equivalent. We did end up having a little cheese board, and each of the cheeses came from different prefectures around Japan, and they were telling us about that. Oh, but rest assured, the cheese was merely a starter, for we had Kobe beef on our mind. So guys, honestly, that little restaurant was adorable. The staff was so nice, and those steak sandwiches were some of the nicest stuff we ate the entire time we were out there. We were chasing that high damn near the entire time. Our first day in Kyoto was a super busy one. We had the Yamazaki distillery tour, which is quite far down south, but thankfully one of Kyoto's most famous temples was just beside our accommodation, which meant we were able to walk up what is normally one of the most busy and packed roads in Kyoto while there was basically no one there, which was so nice. The temple itself was Kiyomizu-dera. It's quite a famous wooden one you'll see in lots of pictures. It's covered in trees, and it was a beautiful sight. One of my favorite temples and locations in everywhere we visited in Japan. I would highly recommend it, especially if you are able to go early like we did and miss all of the unbearable crowds. Listen, I love humanity, but when we get together in a group, we turn into brain dead assholes. It's just a scientific fact.
Then get the joint out.
Oh yeah, damn. That fella. Once we were done exploring, we got about a 30-minute train down south to the Yamazaki distillery, and before our tour we even stopped off at this really cute cafe that backed right onto the train tracks. Then we made our way to the Holy Land. After crossing the terrifying multi-layered train track. Go across the scary tracks. Yeah, boy. The tour itself was, in my opinion, fantastic. Not only is the surrounding area super cool and you learn a lot about the process, but you get a ton of free whiskey, you get a free tasting glass, you get free snacks, and all for 15 quid per person. I do not understand how they're making money on it, but they do specifically ask that you don't record anything during the process, and I respected that. So again, I don't have much footage here, but I do have a little bit of footage of the tasting room at the end where I treated myself to a rather special glass of hibiki. That was 16 quid, but it was kind of maybe worth it. Right, aromas taste like vanilla, but also like caramel, tasting notes and such. What I did neglect to mention is that Shannon hates whiskey, so all of the tasters that she got, I had to finish. So I was half cut by the time we left here, meaning we had to make an emergency stop at a gas station so I can get some water and a snack. Successfully rehydrated, we travelled back into Kyoto town centre and went to this viral ice cream place we saw online called like This Is Shizen. They make ice cream that has bean paste type stuff on the top and it looks incredibly visually pleasing. It really does look good. And if you like the bean paste flavour and you like ice cream, it's definitely worth checking out. Even if it is a bit on the pricey side, you kind of get what you pay for. It looks really cool. There is ice cream in it, it turns out. Underneath it. Is it? Oh, it is. Oh, yeah. There it is. The plan for day 8 was to get up early and explore the Senbon Torii Gates, or the 1,000 Torii Gates, which are the rows and rows of red torii gates, a very famous attraction in Kyoto. We didn't quite manage to get up in time to miss the crowds, but we heard it doesn't matter too much because the higher you go, the more the crowds drop off, and so that was our plan. Thankfully, what we read online turned out to be true. The start was almost unenjoyable. It was so crowded, you couldn't appreciate anything, but after you passed, I'd say the halfway point, which was still a pretty intense part to get to, the crowds fizzled out, and thank God, because it was such a hot day. But when you reach those quiet parts and you're exploring this beautiful, sacred ground, it really does offer some touching moments. Reach the top. We descended with grace, but sadly the rest of the day wasn't as successful as the start because we journeyed back looking for some food. We had some great recommendations from friends that we wanted to check out, but everywhere was either not open or just permanently shut. It was a nightmare. Bro, we've tried like 3 different places today on our recommendations and it's all closed. No. The big issue was that we wanted ramen specifically, and when you're starving hungry and looking for a specific type of food, it never works out the way you want, and in the end we settled on this ramen shop that I won't name because honestly the experience just wasn't great. Big Biru. But in fairness, it was probably the only bad meal we had during our entire stay in Japan. So a wet old day here in Kyoto, but we're making it work. Visit in the old castle. Beautiful detailing. Just 2 totally unrelated bros with their backpacks, cameras, and shit shirts. And with the castle tour done, it was time to head back to Kyoto Station and get ready for our trip to Osaka. Kyoto Station, of course, being famous for its fucking huge staircase. You just go right to the roof of Kyoto Station, look at it. I thought this was going to be like an old rickety train station, like traditional, like Kyoto, no? Bloody spaceship. Sadly, our train was delayed for reasons we wouldn't talk about, meaning there was only one thing to do. I'm playing over the size of these bad boys. And with our bellies full, we went to our train to the most amazing of discoveries. Hello, Kitty train. Only in Japan. She was beautiful, a technological advancement that the Western mind simply cannot comprehend. So sitting in style, we set off for Osaka. That's where we're staying next. Alright. Here is the living space for the next few days. What more could a man need? Yeah, there wasn't too much to say about that room. It was easily the smallest space we stayed in the entire time. It was a tiny shoebox, but we quickly got ready and mooched out because we had a bit of smooth jazz to attend. Japan is known for having some really great jazz bars, and this was one called Proust in Osaka. It's a kind of an up-and-coming one, but if you like jazz and you want to have a few drinks and a celebration, I definitely recommend this place. Before exploring Osaka, we stopped off at Glitch Coffee, which was a really bougie coffee shop just near our accommodation. It is a bit touristy, but they are a really nice vibe and they have lots of cool coffee to select. It's basically drip coffee and you pick the specific bean from a selection. They tell you all about it. They have very good English. I was even supposed to do a little review here, but you can't hear a thing. And so we set off downtown to America Mora, a hip shopping district with lots of vintage clothing, and it was another scorcher of a day. This area was honestly just so fun to look around. If you want some cool clothing items, I definitely recommend you go here. America Mora is grungy as hell. It's like the Bristol of Japan, Osaka specifically. So much going on. You're looking for like retro fits and stylish stuff, come right here. We then stopped off at a small food vendor on the same street as all these quirky shops. We wanted to get some of the takoyaki, which is a like dough ball filled with octopus that's really famous in Japan, specifically Osaka. And not only was it one of my favorite bits of food of the entire time, but this inconspicuous looking little shop had a little grungy back alley like stand where you can sit and drink and eat and all that kind of stuff with tables and chairs. I know I'm not selling it very well, but I was just so surprised that it was even there, and it made the whole experience so much more fun. What kind of fashion is this? Another famous river. The Glico Man is just up ahead, but it's pretty empty right now. Well, the weather is scorching. It's like nearly 30 degrees. These fellas are just going down the river cleaning it, taking all the rubbish. You get that in England. You'd let a body float down the Thames if they could. Don't worry, we'll be back later when it's all lit up. Give you a good old view of it, but it's still sick. It's a sick area. And while we waited for the sun to set, we had some Dutch courage. And we needed for what came next. Don Quixote. I mean, everyone has to do it at least once. It's a cultural landmark, a mega superstore filled with everything you could ever imagine. But to me, it was kind of a personal hell. It is so unbelievably busy, the halls are so tight, it was impossible to look at anything without having damn near a panic attack. But as I say, you have to do it at least once. My idea of hell. So these bad boys. As I said, this day was mostly just mooching about, doing a bit of shopping, having a look at the local areas and smaller little temples, and in the evening there was a really cool bar I saw online that I wanted to check out, and it was essentially a retro arcade where you have themed cocktails and play for free all different vintage games. It was great, and poor Shannon got fucking thrashed. Just cause you're my fiance doesn't mean I won't beat you in video games. After that, we wanted to check out the Glico Man at night when it was all lit up, but for some reason there was a load of police in the area. I think it's because the World Science Expo was there or something like that, but yeah, it felt quite weird. It was like we were prisoners being escorted or something like that. Glico Man, police. It is absolutely bedlam here. Bedlam. On day 11, we took a 30-minute train to Nara Park, home to a beautiful temple and the famous bowing deer. Here with the bow. We've just arrived at Nara Park. We're going to have a little bit of a snack, but we didn't think through that all the deers might get a little bit hungry seeing all our food, so we're kind of hiding at a park opposite. So you kind of thought this was mochi. This is what they call it in England. It's like ice cream in like a rice gelatin kind of container. Mmm. I feel like I won't be able to use any of that footage, but it was just hard to eat because it did stick to your lips. It's like eating venom. And with my food safely ate, I went back to attempting to befriend a deer. Hello. I might have a snack you don't know. You won't know if you don't come over. Me and the boy. Me and the boy. These fellas where they got the idea for squeaky doors from. Are they going to scrap? Oh, they're scrapping. Oh, they're scrapping. Can't lie, these men are messing the grannies up. To be totally honest, I'd initially planned on striking Nara from the list. I'd heard the deers can be quite aggressive, especially if you do have food or crackers on you, but my friend insisted that we went, and I'm glad we did. The views are spectacular, and as long as you don't antagonize the deer or pretend to have food, they really don't bother you at all. When we finally got back to Osaka, it was quite late, and after having dinner, we paid for a taxi across town to a really famous street called Sutenkaku, which is a super lit up neon foodie shoppy kind of area, but sadly when we arrived, the entire area was shut. I mean, it's visually sick down here, but we've come at like 11:20 and everything's basically shut. And again, this was my fault. It was a timing issue, not an issue with the area. The place looked sick, and I'll definitely go back if I get another opportunity. Sadly, that was our last day in Osaka, which is a shame because I feel like I could have spent twice as long there. But the next day was a travel day, and it was the longest travel day so far, traveling from Osaka all the way down to Hiroshima and then back to Fukuyama. A busy day traveling, one that was accompanied with the strangest bento box I've had. Yeah, you pull a string and it basically heats the entire dish up, and that might sound normal, but in a country so strict about rules and courtesy, I wasn't sure if you're allowed to do that on the train, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna fucking blow up. I was terrified. I was sweating the whole time, and not from the heat, from the social pressure. Hiroshima, as you might have expected, it was a pretty somber place. As such, I didn't really record much footage here. It didn't feel respectful to be pointing a camera at everything I saw, and I didn't get any footage of the museum, even though I think you might have been able to. But yeah, it's definitely worth going. I'm glad I did from a historical aspect, but it is a heavy place. I did, however, record us trying okonomiyaki for the first time in the evening, with the Hiroshima version of this savory dinner having noodles mixed into it. This specific spot was called Okonomimura, and I would highly suggest it. It's got a huge selection of different types, and I thought it was delicious. The next day was easily one of the best of the holiday for both of us, the Shimanami Kaido cycle, a bike ride over 70 kilometers long that takes you across 2 prefectures, multiple islands and dazzling bridges. It has some of the most beautiful sights you can see, and you get to explore Japan in a way you simply can't with public transport. Yeah, it's beautiful here. Totally different to everywhere we've been so far. Very nautical. Moved one place in 15 minutes. There's one poor worker at the tills. Don't think we're gonna make it today. Oh, but after hours of waiting, we did make it, and by God did we look cool. And after a short boat ride, we were off. The bike hire was a bit of a disaster, but we done it. We were going to bail a couple of times, but I'm really glad we didn't. The day's perfect for it. We wanted the pedal assist bikes, but all they had was the e-bikes, and we kind of ummed and ahed about it, but we went for the e-bike, and I'm glad we did. Look at the state of this fella. Camera won't do it justice as always. Will it? See that? Oh, you can just. I think the great thing about this ride is you get to see small villages and rural places like you just never could while traveling Japan. Well, rural Lawson. Just stopped at this beautiful viewpoint. You can see the rolling hills, the water. I'm gonna have a bit of lunch. Very excited, very hungry. This has been beautiful, way more beautiful than I thought it would be. And I definitely recommend it. With e-bikes, because the hills are grueling. Oh my God, look what she's done to it. This is like a rice onigiri, but it's got ketchup mixed into it with an omelette on top. So it's kind of like a full English onigiri, I would say. It is really good. If you like ketchup, you'll like it. To be honest, it mostly just tastes like ketchup and egg. But I like it. And what have you? Pan. Zoom in on that clock up there. I can't see. All that's left to do is cycle up to this big bridge somehow, and then it takes us over multiple islands and to our final destination. Someone's welding something in there. The videos never do it justice, but the view is just absolutely insane. Many hours later, with our legs aching, there was only one thing to do: getting another bowl of ramen. The following day we were feeling pretty tired, so we had a nice easy one and actually caught the train back to Onomichi, the port where we took the bikes from, and we were lucky enough to catch their iconic yellow train. The station itself was actually really cool because alongside having the standard stamp, they also had this staircase outlining loads of different local shops and restaurants. I don't know, I thought it was a cute touch, especially because this train station is kind of a through point to the popular Onomichi cycle. It was a nice way to support all the local businesses. Onomichi really is a cute little seaside town, not to throw around the term haphazardly, but it is very Studio Ghibli vibes, and we just kind of mooched about. We bought some ramen bowls to bring back, which was lovely, one of which didn't make it, not across the world, just to the hotel room because I dropped it and smashed it, but we don't talk about that. One of the area's main attractions is the gondola you can take up to the hill, and there's a viewing point and a little temple to walk down the hill on. It was a really nice area to explore. Trying to do a smooth pan, but I'm scared because my camera's over an edge. On the way down, we stopped off at a really cute coffee shop and we ended up speaking to an Aussie couple and having a chat with them, and we went together to look at the cat alley, so I didn't get much footage and I didn't see any cats, so cat alley, bit of propaganda, but it was a cool place to explore nonetheless. We're on our way to try and find some conveyor belt sushi in Fukuyama. A couple of guys in on the hunt. We could get some food at Pinocchio Spazio. Just joking, we found the Holy Land. Cheap conveyor belt sushi. Yeah. Man, I don't even know where this place lands in terms of its quality, but the range of things you can get here for the price is absolutely insane. So for context on the price, this is what we've ordered, right? All of this, most of them come with 2 items. 2 bottles of sake, multiple wagyu, oysters, roast beef, fries, razor clams, seared steak. Too much, but we're not judging. Joko, fatty tuna again, seared wagyu again. 6,000 yen, which is like
£33.
£33. Holy shit. Day 14 was kind of another write-off travel day. We had to travel from the Hiroshima Prefecture basically back to Tokyo, just outside in an area called Kamakura. That took the majority of the day, and when we arrived, the weather had taken a turn for the worst. Yeah, weather's taken a change here in Kamakura. It is quite cold and very wet. We're excited for our last 4 days. Our final stay is this beachside property in Kamakura. We were really looking forward to it. Did a little bit of swimming. I looked right out onto the water. But yeah, I don't know if the weather's here for it at the moment. It is wet, wet, wet. I'll just get a carry pan and call it a day. Look, I can't complain about the weather. It was so unexpectedly hot for our first 2 weeks there, so it is what it is. It's just a shame because Kamakura specifically is a very kind of outdoorsy, beachy area that's hard to appreciate in the cold and the rain. But we walked up the way to a cute looking izakaya we found, and we had this hot press of mixed gyozas and some potato salad, which was the perfect way to wrap up this cold evening. The next morning was a nice clear day, so we immediately set off for one of Kamakura's biggest attractions, the giant Buddha. And this fella's actually hollow. You can pay 10 pence to go and have a look inside. It's not big, but it's pretty cool. And after reading about the ancient welding techniques, we stopped off for a bit of eel, and it was my first time having eel there. It's a dish I've seen lots of people talk about, and it was delicious. And the rest of that day was spent traveling to and hiring out a car for the preceding day, where we intended to travel to Fuji. And by God, a car we got. Pulling up in the little S-Wagon, swagging it out. So after taking turns doing donuts in every 7-Eleven on the route home, we called it an early night. The next day we were up at 4 AM. The plan was to travel to Fuji, which is about a 2-hour drive, and try and see the sun rising behind it. The weather gave us an 80% chance of viewing it, so we set off excitedly. But first, there was one stop we had to make. Long story short, we weren't even close to seeing the sunrise. It was quite far away, and it was our first time driving abroad, let alone in such a foreign country, so it took us a lot longer to get there than anticipated. But we were still optimistic about seeing the mountain itself. We drove round to the north of the mountain to Fukiyoshida, specifically Churito Pagoda, I think I'm pronouncing that right, which has a super famous view of Fuji. You just have to climb up a fair few steps to get there. God, that's a lot of steps. Thank God, that's exactly what Pagoda needs. On the top of a mountain. It is cool though. The pagoda was stunning, the view was stunning, but Fuji was nowhere to be seen. We stayed there for as long as our coats would allow us, but eventually we had to cut our losses. And we thought maybe if we tried another angle, we might be able to see it. So after appreciating the base of the temple, which is still very beautiful, we sped down south to Lake Ashi. This lake is covered with forests, temples, torii gates, and some of the biggest trees I've ever seen in my entire life.
Like a little wishing tree.
It's also home to this super famous torii gate that sits out onto the lake, and it's a super popular photo spot. But alas, we still couldn't see Fuji, and determined, we had one last idea. What if we penetrated the clouds themselves and saw Fuji from above? This was a great idea and concept, but turned into a disaster because the minute we got on board, it started pissing it down. On the upside, I thought we were just going to like an observation point, but it turned out to be like an active sulfur volcano. It just started smelling like eggs, and the view there was like post-apocalyptic. It was actually really cool and a massive surprise.
That was actually sick. They're going over the smoke, over the fissure. I thought this was just taking us to a little observation point on the hill, but we've arrived in like fallout. Look at the weird trees that grow here because of the sulphur. I don't know if they're stripped or just mutating. It was just turning into chaos up here. It's way too wet. We need a nice warm bowl of ramen. When you're cold and wet, get yourself some hot udon with curry, apparently. What a cool view. Yeah, we ain't seeing Fuji anymore. Put the sun and hell out here. It's a cool ass lake. It's just a very, very cold, wet day. We're not letting it defeat us. We're going strong, even with the umbrella. Pirate ship.
After that, we mooched back to Kamakura, but we'd been up since 4 AM. We were shattered, so we found some food and called it a pretty early night because the weather was just getting worse and worse.
There's another absolute washout here in Kamakura, but I can't complain because the weather has been just too good up to this point. I'd rather it be wet when all we're trying to do is get some food and beer than when we were looking around at the monuments and stuff, but yeah, we're getting soaked.
Sadly, our final day was upon us, and we decided to spend it where it all began, back in Tokyo. Initially, we were going to go to this popular coffee shop we saw online, but it was pack out. So we went to somewhere up the road, and I'm glad we did, because it was just as good, and you could actually get a seat without waiting half an hour. Coffee down? First up was Ginza, a posh shopping district where we had a little mooch about the various shops. But there was one main reason we trekked all the way back into this posh little area, and that was because we had a 24-piece sushi tasting menu booked at this gaff called Sushi Yamaken. And let me tell you, when I say this was some of the nicest sushi we had, I ain't joking.
Cool, look at that.
This place is a little bit less heard of than the other mainstream ones, and it meant that we were the only foreigners in there, but I think that's better. It was a way more authentic experience, and the place is so nice. It's in a high-rise, which means either way you're looking, you have a great view. I got to look out the window at the night city, and my beautiful fiancée, Shan, got to look at the chefs cooking behind us, so it's kind of a win-win no matter where you're sat, and the food was beautiful. Even some of the stranger things we tried, like raw sea urchin or raw squid, which, yeah, that's something you have to try.
Well, the plan is now to walk to Tokyo Tower and try and see the city lit up before we leave, but it is cloudy as fuck, so I don't know if that's going to happen. Let's see. I mean, whether or not we get a view, there's no arguing that's not impressive. There's so many lights on it, it's practically glowing. It's really picking up now. Well, the tower didn't happen. I don't know what happened exactly. We looked at the times before we set off in the morning to get back to Kamakura, and as we were in the queue, we just decided to double check them.
and it turned out that we had to basically leave immediately or we wouldn't be able to make it home at like 9. But these things happen. It's hard to complain when everything leading up to it has been so amazing. Tried things I wouldn't normally do, learned more of the language in 1 to 2 weeks than I did in 2 years of Duolingo, and I'm leaving with a fiance, so no complaints here, apart from the rain.